communication skills are far more critical than technical product knowledge in sales. For a skilled communicator, customer preferences will show time and time again that they choose someone who can present that information well rather than someone who is an extreme expert all the time. Better outcomes come through communicating the points better, not through actually having the know-how and the knowledge. Because think about it, how are they going to know you have the knowledge if you can't communicate those points effectively? So many salespeople are so focused on how to describe the technical that they lose the very fundamental aspect of what makes the technical important in the first place, which is believing like you have their best interests at heart and they can trust you due to the expertise of your questions about them. Welcome, everyone, to the Close More Sales podcast. On today's episode, we're focusing on why sales as something to master, something to work at, isn't just about persuasion. It's actually mastering communication in a way that transforms every aspect of your life. Whether you're doing the basic stuff like convincing your kids to go to bed or negotiating a major contract, everything in this life is about how effectively you communicate, not just how you persuade. So, what's the purpose of the show? What is this all about? The purpose of this show is to empower sales professionals and entrepreneurs to push themselves to grow, achieve unimaginable success without burning out, and ultimately transform their lives, what we're going to talk about today. I'm Ian Ross, and I am obsessed with all things sales. And I work with teams across the English-speaking world to make more money by asking better questions. The most proven path to achieving financial freedom is maximizing your earning potential. And a sales role is the lowest barrier with the highest possible ceiling for entry onto that path. And anyone, I do believe this, anyone can become a killer salesperson with the right techniques, mindset, and consistency. And everything we cover on this podcast is geared toward one thing: helping you close more sales so you can live the life you want. If you find value in what we talk about here on this show, subscribe and follow the podcast and share this video with your friends, with your coworkers. Share the podcast with people you know who you think who could benefit from what we talk about here. And if you want our cheat sheet on exactly what to say on a follow-up call, text follow up, that's 2 words, follow up, to 33777, and we'll send that to you for free. So first here, let's talk about this idea of redefining sales as something beyond simply persuasion, right? And I've heard this talked about by other people, which is, it's still a very generous way to think about sales, which is that sales is everything, right? Sales is you use it all the time in life you're selling. And that's true to an extent, but the examples they give are things like I touched upon at the start of this episode, which is like, you want to convince your kids to do their homework or go to bed. That's sales. You want to get your partner to watch a certain movie with you. You're selling him or her. You want to convince a coworker to, do work for you or take something off your plate or come to a party, anything like this. This is all sales, they say, right? Which is true to an extent. However, it's only a portion of sales, because everything that I just touched on is an aspect of persuasion. And I am deeply fascinated and ultimately obsessed with human psychology and what causes things to be persuasive. But I still think that reducing what we train on, anyway, reducing sales at its essence to just being persuasive oversimplifies its impact. It's actually deeper than simply convincing someone, simply persuading someone. And we're going to get into that on this episode today. There's also, we can talk a little bit about this idea that effective sales techniques, what do they really do if you're using them in everyday life, right? What we have found, as with other people I've worked with, people I've trained, people who I consult, it affects you significantly as a partner, as a parent, as a coworker, as a friend in a lot more ways than it simply has you perform better as a coworker, or as a salesperson, I should say. The salesperson aspect is the most impactful part of getting sales training, but fundamentally, it is simply communication, and we've seen that many times over. So I'll give you some examples. Many salespeople train on this idea of reading a script and delivering that script a certain way. You can make sales in delivering a script memorized and perfected to an extent a certain way. You can make plenty of money doing things that way. We train differently because we train on frameworks, and we train on understanding when and how to use the techniques we train on within those frameworks. And why that has an effect on every aspect of your life is because that is not unique to a sales conversation. It happens all the time. It happens with partners, with friends, with family. It happens when you are communicating with other human beings. That's why it's communication. So I'll give you some examples here, how to think about this. For us, if I am having a conversation with my wife, I am not trying necessarily in using the techniques that I use to convince her to take action on what I want to have her take action on. Because that's not, in my opinion, what a successful marriage is built on, and not what relationships with most human beings is built on. One person asserting dominance and being persuasive all the time. Really, what I do is try and understand my wife. Try and make sure she is validated and heard when she's having a good day or a bad day or anything in between, in a way that allows her as well as me to continue working on the same wavelength, where we trust each other and can offer ideas and solutions when problems and challenges arise. This sounds very generic and superficial almost, like, oh, very kumbaya, yeah, you're just able to suggest things. But we do really specific things to make sure that the people we talk to in our lives can feel validated, heard, and understood. And we know when to shut up. We know when to ask questions. We know when to go deeper. We know how to get someone to expand on an idea, how to get someone to tell me about what's important to them, how to get someone to express in a memory, in a visualization technique, in thinking about the future, and talking about a fear or a hesitation, the way that person sees the world. And how they reveal they see the world informs how I can choose, or to choose not to, in the case of my wife or family and friends, to persuade them to do certain things. The idea of persuading, of convincing, of getting you to take action and feel like it was your idea is only a fraction of the stuff we train on, because it's understanding psychology, it's understanding people, it's understanding how to get ideas across and how to listen for what is being said. Our focus is not forcing you to take action or move through the process or move through our pipeline. That's an inevitable conclusion if we do our job right and we market it to the right people. But that's not actually what we're training on. We are training on deeper stuff than that. Foundational human communication ability, all that stuff is really, really about understanding the other person, using active listening, hearing what they're saying, knowing that when someone tells me, yeah, I'm feeling a little nervous right now, there's 3 different ways I could be diving into that. I could say, nervous, just to get, classic mirroring to get them to open up a little bit more. I could get more specific in a lockdown question. I could say, when you say right now, what is it about right now that's making you feel more nervous than any other time? Right? These are just tools. Whether I'm trying to get you to buy something of mine or sell me your asset at a discount is irrelevant to the tool. It's just what the tool is being used on. I could say, tell me a little bit more about your nerves. What's going on right now? Or if I want, I could go like, I hear that all the time. Something that a friend told me when they were going through something pretty similar was pretty profound. Is it okay if I share that with you? And then I can tell a third-party story to insert an idea. These are all just tools for communication. And inside of our sales training, we role play all the time and get practice expressing these ideas verbally so that no matter the circumstance, no matter Whether I'm trying to get you to buy something, whether I'm trying to talk to a friend in a time of need, I don't stumble over my words. I don't flinch and hesitate and lose the ability to choose to be persuasive or choose simply to listen. No matter what is said to me, I'm prepared because I've gotten the practice in. I've gotten the reps in the sales training. That's why sales is communication. Because if you are constantly training on this idea, constantly training on the techniques of how to ask questions, how to recap back what someone said, how to include their identity, how to seem interested in someone if you're actually not interested in them. All these things come up in life as well as sales conversations. This is what we train on. Whether you're talking to a camera like I'm doing here, and I'm clearly riffing a little bit. For those of you who don't know, who watch the podcast instead of listening to it, I've got a teleprompter, but it just has an outline. It's not line for line. It's just an outline to remind me of what to say in what order that I prepared ahead of time. But most of this is kind of off the dome because I've practiced the skill of being able to communicate this way enough. And we do that within our sales training. It is simply the ability to communicate with another human being, whether it's public speaking, whether it's talking to a camera, whether it's talking to your girlfriend, boyfriend, dad, mom, brother, sister, coworker, whatever, your accountant, whatever. It's simply understanding what causes people to feel listened to, and then how you can get them in that moment to then take your advice or not take your advice. It's just communication. I just wanted to hit that point home. To bring into the next section, that there's some mistakes here that a lot of people make quite frequently in sales, is that most sales training programs, at least niche ones or ones within a certain company, have far too much emphasis on technical knowledge. They focus on teaching ways to present the information based on that salesperson's industry or product, rather than the communication skill to begin with. Communication skills are far more critical than technical product knowledge in sales. And this is so true whether consumers want it to be or not. The reality is, for a skilled communicator, customer preferences will show time and time again that they choose someone who can present that information well rather than someone who is an extreme expert all the time. Better outcomes come through communicating the points better, not through actually having the know-how and the knowledge. Because think about it. How are they going to know you have the knowledge if you can't communicate those points effectively? It's all about how you get your point across, how you ask your questions, how you frame the conversation from the start so that it's oriented the way you want it to go. So many salespeople, because of their company, because of their product, because of their training, their stupid, outdated, old training, are so focused on how to describe the technical that they lose the very fundamental aspect of what makes the technical important in the first place, which is believing like you have their best interests at heart and they can trust you due to the expertise of your questions about them. That is more important than describing the most technical detail. And that's true, believe me, whether you're selling to a mom trying to buy a scented candle or a software engineer trying to buy a product. It's true that you need to get more technical if the product is more technical. But still, no matter what the salesperson is selling, the ability to communicate is still more important than the technical expertise. I've seen this in presentations at masterminds and conferences. Someone who I know has their stuff together. They've got the knowledge, they've got the know-how, they've got the track record, they've got everything in their life where like, we should all be bowing down to this person based on the results they've had and their knowledge. That is not the most important thing when presenting. It's how you present. It's how you engage the audience. It's how you tell stories. It's how you pause. It's how your tone sounds. It's the emotion behind your points. It's the vivid imagery. It's the idea of saying, if I'm talking about a scented candle, if I relate it to a memory and a story rather than just going, it smells like the woods. If I talk about the soft moss that you imagine growing up, running through the woods with your cousins, and that moment of feeling free and feeling lost in youth, we've captured that in a candle that you can experience whenever you want to light it. That type of ability is simply communication, and that will always play a higher point, a higher factor, a more important, just like fundamental skill to master than having more technical knowledge. The only reason truly, and this is, people don't like this, but it's true. The only reason to actually have deep technical knowledge, if you are a salesperson, is for your internal belief system to make sure that you know more than you have to say out loud. I'm going to repeat that. The only reason to actually have to have deep technical product knowledge that's so much more than the prospect could ever have is an internal mechanism for the salesperson to have confidence that they know what they're talking about. It's simply a tool to be able to communicate more effectively. That's it. It's just a tool to be able to do that. Which brings me to the point here. Sales is communication. It's even the technical knowledge is to be able to feel more confident in how you communicate. It's not actually to give them deeper technical knowledge. It's for you to know internally, I don't have to bring this up because I know what I'm talking about. The communication is what drives the deal. And the most, I'm sure, can just imagine the comments here of people being like, no, it's not true for my product. That's not true for my industry. What about sales engineers? What about this thing? What about that thing? I promise in whatever industry you're thinking about, if you're trying to have some type of objection to this idea, whatever product, whatever sales engineer role you can think of, I can promise there's someone who sold more than you or the person you're thinking of in that industry who did not have your technical expertise, but was better at communicating. Why did they do that? Because they were better at communicating, not because of the technical expertise. So the point is mute. I promise that the reality is how you communicate is everything. Okay. And the way we communicate effectively in sales.
Hey, my name is Brian. I'm a real estate investor. Ian's sales training has helped me buy more houses at a deeper discount. Most recently, Ian helped me reframe a question which resulted in me buying a house for less money than other offers the seller had on the table. If you're considering sales training, I don't think you can go wrong with Ian's.
I'm filming this video for the man himself, Mr. Ian Ross. The guy crushes. The guy's the best person in sales I've ever seen. I've invested elsewhere and I haven't got the same results. I've gone from being a seller, making 5K a month, to being a hybrid role, making 11K a month, to now be 4 months down the line from 5K to on a closing opportunity, inbound, full calendar, with the best opportunity, the best offer in my space. OTE is around 20K a month from month 2. So I've gone from 5K to 20K. If that's not a return on your investment, I don't know what is, man. If you're a salesperson and you don't invest in sales training, you're going to get left behind because your job is to be better at sales. And sales training directly makes you more money.
If you like what you just heard and you'd like to have similar types of results, similar success, text CLOSE, CLOSE, to 33777, and we'll see if you qualify to join Advanced Sales Master. We are taking people from good to great. Communicate effectively in sales is not through presenting. It's asking the right questions and then actively listening back to hear what was said. These are key components of all communication, especially communication on a one-on-one level with what we have in our life. If you want to build trust and rapport, that's has to happen through communication abilities rather than simply persuading. Persuading someone all the time to do whatever you want them to do will never allow you to actually connect with them because you will always have this domineering sense in your life, like, no, do this, do that, I want you to do this. Even if you're able to pull back and not make it as obvious that you're dominating or persuading, internally they will know that they're not being listened to. They're not letting their opinions be expressed and then explored and then encouraged, maybe questioned. But like all of that is besides the point, because what matters in the context of what we train on is asking questions and then repeating back what you heard. That is fundamentally what this gets to. Where else is that relevant? On dates, right? In relationships, in friendships. It matters in interacting with people, okay? So a same thing that as you get to know someone better in your personal life, say a spouse, you get to know your spouse better over time, either early on in the relationship or maybe after you're even married or engaged, whatever you're doing. As you get to know them better, your communication style with them will adapt because you've got a deeper connection with them. You understand how to communicate with them. There's things you can leave unsaid and emphasize other points. And that happens naturally in our lives with people we know really well. The skilled salesperson can do that far quicker in an interaction with someone they just met. I'll talk about this here. There's a necessity as you get better, as you get more skilled, as you get more experienced, as you get more advanced, to be able to be in pursuit of a best practice at all times. So let me talk about this point here before I move on. If you're brand new to sales, if you're just getting going, you don't have to do this right now. You simply have to focus on a best practice to ask a question the same way every single time that works with the most amount of people, regardless of what you've heard. Just focus on that best practice. But as you get more skilled, as you get more advanced, the best practice will evolve beyond that, because then there will be a aspect of adaptation that is required for you to be doing a best practice, because you no longer have to be focusing on that next question. You no longer have to ask the same thing every single time. You can vary a bit because you're more comfortable with the routine, with what you ask. And when you are more comfortable, you don't have to always be focusing on the next thing to ask, the next thing to say, the next word to describe your product or service. You don't have to do any of that. It frees you up. Your brain can dance a little bit. And when that happens, once you feel that level of experience, it is your responsibility to adapt your communication style a little bit based on what your prospect is telling you, what they're telling you, how they're describing the world. There's continual growth in effective communication. The same way there would be growth in a relationship when you have a spouse, when you have a partner in life, that you can connect quicker. You can move on to the next topic easier and more subtly. You can get them to want to take action sooner. You can get them emotional sooner, right? We all know that we can all press each other's buttons way quicker the better we know someone. A stranger shouting at me on the street can't hurt my feelings because they don't know enough about me to say anything that's impactful or meaningful. My wife could devastate me if she wanted to because she knows everything about me. That ability to do that quickly, on the fly, almost immediately compared to how long those other relationships are, is something we train on. In active listening, hearing how someone describes the world, understanding their personality type, who they are, where their hesitations will be, what are they more likely to say will be the holdup when it's time to ask them to take action. All of those things we can orient around and adjust our process, our question, our very words and tone themselves based on what we've heard our prospects say, what we've gathered about them in the conversation. That skill is also relevant in real life. I did this with an Uber driver just the other day. I was heading to the airport to go see a friend, stay with friends for a wedding back in a different city, back in New York. And I took a picture in the back seat, being like, yep, I'm in the Uber on the way to the airport. Can't wait to see you. And I got challenged. As a friend of mine, he challenged me to get a picture with the Uber driver. He's like, you're not really having fun unless you take a picture with the Uber driver. I had not spoken to the Uber driver yet. I was sort of laughed at my friend's suggestion, said, all right, challenge accepted. Then I had no idea if this would work. I said that first. And then I started having a conversation with the Uber driver and asking questions and labeling back what they said and moving forward, what she said, moving forward into like her identity and like complimenting her and asking another question based on that compliment and then going deeper. And by the end, I was like, this is going to seem crazy. My friend texted me. He's like, I'm not having fun unless I get a picture with you with the Uber driver on the way to the airport. That's a crazy request, isn't it? She was like, no, that's not crazy. Let's do it. We'll get a picture together. So I sent him a picture after, 20 minutes or something after saying challenge accepted on the way to the airport. That's a minor little nothing example. but it's a representation of having the right skill set to communicate effectively. Sure, in that aspect, there was a slight convincing persuasion aspect, but that came about not through saying, this is why you need to take a photo with me. It was through the technique of her liking me, of feeling like I was in pursuit of more information about her, of feeling listened to, of feeling understood, of feeling interesting with the questions I was asking. That is sales. That is sales at its core in terms of the techniques we train on. Right? I did an episode, I have no idea how long ago now, on strategic questioning. Strategic questioning is not unique to sales. It is simply communication on a one-on-one basis. On a level where I'm talking to one other person, I am able to control the conversation and then gently guide them without overt pressure based on understanding how to ask questions, the golden ratio of talk time, which is the 70-30% of 70% should be my prospect talking, 30% should be me talking. So I'm listening. Effective sales communication involves listening more than speaking, understanding that idea, and embracing the impact my sales skills have on my life. Rather than trying to persuade my relationships outside of sales, the personal stories of now I can make sure that the people I am talking to, whether in a sales context or not, I understand how to make them feel heard and understood, how to make them feel listened to, how to make them feel important. That does not have to come with me asking for your credit card at the end. It doesn't have to come with me asking for you to sign over your house. Let's do it. Let's sell your home together. It doesn't require any of that. It's a natural conclusion if I use that in the context of a sales conversation. But in real life, people just go, wow, Ian's a great listener. Man, he seemed really interested in me. The more interested you can seem in someone, the more interesting they feel as a result of talking to you. And everyone loves feeling interesting. Everyone likes feeling like their purpose matters, their hobbies matter, their view of the world is interesting and important and matters. And we can give people that sensation whenever we feel like it with the skills we train on. Okay? This is a comprehensive communication skill set rather than a mere persuasive tool. I just wanted to make that point. That's the whole point of this podcast, is really understanding that the skills that we give you if you sign up for our sales training, frankly, it sounds very promotional. I'm just wanted to, because I differentiate, because not every sales training is like this, to be clear. Some sales training is so transactional, so focused on the process, so like kind of beginner and basic, that it doesn't go into these concepts because it gives you memorized garbage to spit out that only works in the hyper-specific context of trying to sell your thing. That's not what we do. We go deeper than that, because the deeper you go, the more effective you get. If you get to the root cause of what causes someone to take action, you are so much more persuasive than the memorized rebuttal. Okay? Mastering sales communication is about enhancing how we understand and how we connect to and with others in every facet of life. Let me leave you with this before we wrap up here. Just earlier this year, I was in Lisbon. I was wandering the streets. It was August, warm summer afternoon, and I stumbled across a street magician, and he was performing for a huge crowd. And Lisbon's a really international city, so there was a lot of people there. He was talking English. And this street musician, he didn't have flashy props or elaborate tricks. It was just a deck of cards and a microphone, a confident smile, and a voice that drew you in. And yet somehow he had everyone completely captivated. The magic there, it wasn't in the tricks themselves. It was in the story he told about the tricks, his energy, his presence. He created an experience so engaging, so vivid, that the audience couldn't help but feel part of something almost extraordinary, almost beautiful in that brief little moment. And as I stood there watching, my own jaw kind of dropping with the way he drew everyone in, it struck me. The power in a street magician wasn't in what he did. It was how he made people feel. The power was in his ability to communicate. It made me think about sales. What if instead of obsessing over tired tactics or memorized lines, we focused on creating a story and, more importantly, an experience that was so compelling that prospects felt drawn in, not pushed towards the checkout line? What if the experience we created made their decision feel natural, even inevitable? In addition to everything else we teach, there's a way to use storytelling as a tool, like I just did, not just to connect with your audience or clients, but to guide them to the right decisions. It's not about pressure or pushing anyone to do something they don't want to do. It's about crafting a narrative, crafting a moment, weaving that narrative in a way that feels collaborative and can make your prospect feel heard, understood, and excited about the possibilities. If you are curious about how to take what I just talked about, or even this little approach here, to the next level, take it into your sales conversations so that you can do everything I just talked about, text CLOSE, CLOSE, to 33777. We will explore what this could look like for you. I'm Ian Ross. This has been the Close More Sales Podcast.